Welcome, guys. Thank you very much. I think we have like 35 minutes to chat a little bit about compliance and privacy. You three of you are building some pretty cool things. I have some pretty standard question we're going to start with, and then I guess after that I would love to kind of have a little bit of a conversation. Maybe also getting some people in the audience involved if you want to, so it's less of a lecture. I think maybe we'll start from you, Manu, and I think maybe you could try like start by describing, maybe what you do at Lemon, but also what is the problem that you're solving and how maybe it relates to compliance.
Sure. So, well, thanks a lot for the invitation. My name is Manú Hersch. I'm a compliance specialist in Lemon. If I had to answer first about the problem, I would say that we saw that crypto adoption was not going at the speed that we would like to. So we created the best dual wallet to take crypto everywhere and make it for everyone. I think that with Lemon, crypto is that easy to use that, well, maybe even my grandma uses it and understands it. So our main goal was that Lemon is a dual wallet. We aim to be the first and most important dual wallet in Latin America. We already achieved that in Argentina, in which we have a model by which people can use fiat currency, buy cryptocurrency, use us also as an off-ramp. And we also give them a prepaid card that they can use in the storage. I mean, they can purchase here a hamburger or they can go anywhere in the world and use it. And we give them cashback in BTC. So in a nutshell, that would be it.
So wallet and a payment infrastructure.
Yeah, an exchange. We started being an exchange and we pivot to a more comprehensive business model in which now we are a dual wallet.
Okay, thank you. Antonio, like a minute and a half, let's say. What can you tell us?
Okay, I'm Antonio. I'm a CTO and co-founder at Wilke. Wilke is a wallet. Someone calls it a neobank, but started by solving a problem that I, as a crypto user, had, and was like, I don't want to reveal all my net worth and past transaction history every time I pay a friend, and because none of my friends wanted to download a privacy-preserving wallet, enter in a shielded area, whatever, no? So I ended up having a lot of addresses, and my idea was like, why I cannot have all these addresses in one place? And so Fluky is, in a nutshell, is that as a wallet that for every payment you receive, every transaction you do, it goes to a new, fresh address, and there it stays. These addresses are smart accounts. So, and then we can deep dive later, but the idea is that then the UX should not be a problem with this solution compatible with any blockchain.
Okay, so wallet also, and you have like combine all the different address and allows to shield some privacy by having some kind of, and we'll see maybe later a little bit more in detail. He's going to cover like the compliance. Alexander.
Yeah, same. My name is Alex. I'm the co-founder of Bermuda, and we see that a lot of wallets want to align with the Ethereum privacy roadmap and like build privacy into the wallet, but the main issue is that the user experience breaks because it's a little bit hard to add privacy to an existing wallet which has already a user flow. So at Bermuda, we're building a lightweight SDK that allows any wallet to add privacy to the wallet without breaking the user experience. And we focused on enabling every account like a smart account, but also EUA-based account to do private actions in the wallet. Yeah.
Okay. So two wallet, SDK for wallet. Well, I think everyone knows Scroll, but we can still, if you want to introduce a little bit, what you've been doing, maybe some topics, related to our like payment today with Scroll.
Sure. Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Haichen. So I'm the co-founder of Scroll. And Scroll is a ZK ROP on the Ethereum. It's like that's full transparency. But recently, we've been working on a privacy layer solutions called Cloak, where like we can offer like full privacy, so including anonymous and also confidentiality for all of the transaction history, user balance, so those things. And then like importantly, like we believe that into the practical privacy where it's still like so user experience won't be compromised. So it be the solution will be gasless, like so user doesn't need to pay anything like that. So for you don't need to pay additional things, like it won't be more expensive using compared to non-private solutions on the blockchain, which we believe it will be the key importance for more adoptions of the privacy inside the blockchain space. And then, like in addition, like we also we're in the back, we're using the ZK to guarantee the those private transactions are being executed, processed correctly. And then we are doing more improvement to allow it to be more seamlessly integrated with other applications and DeFi's, so that like a user can still, while in the privacy mode, you can still do like swap, or like it still can earning yield on your private wallet.
Okay, so more on the infrastructure level. I guess I'm curious to know, maybe, so we share a definition, like if you could tell me, each of you, in few words, what does it mean, cash privacy, like, what is privacy for you, like in each of your contexts? There's three, of course, wallet, more infrastructure, but really, what does it mean, privacy? Is this the transaction? Is this like the content? Is this what does it mean? Maybe like we can start with you.
Okay, yeah. I think like for privacy, a cash-like privacy, it should be like the regular to people who are using their normal bank transactions, or those wallet apps, like non-blockchain based wallet apps. So it's like you, by default, you have those all of your balance, your transaction, how much amount who you are interact with. Those should be all private. And in addition, like you shouldn't be having a lot of like hassle to set up, like to maintain those things. So I was thinking like it's more, if you want to be like cash-like, then that means like it means more users need to use that. But not of like, I think currently the privacy solutions in the blockchain is more towards the tech-savvy people, where like you need to a lot of like keep your in-house private keys, and you need to do a lot of bookkeeping internally. So if you lose the things, you probably lose your whole assets held inside the private wallet. So that's why we're thinking is like it should be more like a very user UX friendly, and then also it'd be like offering the full privacy for those cash-like applications to be successful in the blockchain.
Well, I guess since you're talking about UI, I'm going to jump to you, Antonio, and we'll go back because you mentioned, you wanted to have the user experience in the way you've been building this. So maybe you could tell us also, like, what privacy means for you.
Yeah. So when I do some talks, the first thing I always say is that privacy is a big concept. We can argue for an hour, and we never have probably the same definition of privacy. So that's one thing to keep in mind. When I look for, as a user of a wallet or the blockchain in general space, privacy is being able to do whatever I normally do without blockchain the same way, without being worried of revealing my assets. So this might maybe not comply with the idea of privacy, where everything should be hidden, everything should be shielded, because then there's also the problem of compliance. So I believe that there's a path between the total hidden part and the old public part of the blockchain that sits in the middle, that allows anyone to have no problem doing whatever they do normally without sharing any information on top of what the other person might know. So if I have to pay you $100, of course, I have $100 because I'm paying you, but maybe I don't want you to see like how much I have in the bank. But then if there's the request of a compliance from a third party and I am a good guy, I have no problem proving that I am compliant with any AML laws or whatever is there. And that's in a nutshell, I think, what I focus. And this, of course, when I say I need to do everything that I normally do with a bank, must include the user experience. Okay, so I don't have to worry about now I need to bridge asset or what is I have USDC on 3 chains and I see 3 different balances. Like this stuff, for a regular user, it's extremely confusing. Okay, so for tech people, no, I have no problem, but for a regular user, it's extremely confusing, and this is where the UX needs to look at. It's really going, when you say going next to your grandma, it really means going next to your grandma.
Absolutely. We need that 100%. Something that is simple, that doesn't take to take a terminal to be able to do some private transaction. I can only say yes to this, and I think everyone around here in the panel. Maybe Manny, you could tell us, for Lemon, since you've been deployed on already 8 countries, right, in LATAM? Yes.
Yeah.
So what privacy means for you? Is this between different countries? Is this just for users? How you approach this at Lemon?
So I really agree with what you said. I think it's finding the right balance. Historically, maybe we tend to see privacy on one avenue and compliance on the other. And I think technology, and especially cryptography, started to allow us to breach those worlds or those gaps. I think it's still granting a user the giving us the minimum information and documentation while still complying with what we need to comply with. And if bad things happen, as you said, money laundering or other bad actors try to abuse the system, we still have the right tools to find them without harnessing the user's privacy. I think it's like finding that balance and stop thinking about privacy and compliance as separate lanes or avenues that does not touch, but instead like a Cartesian, graphic in which you have in the middle the right balance. If you have too much compliance, well, you will compromise the user privacy. You have too little, well, you can end up opening the door for other bad actors that you don't want in your system. So it's like a sweet spot right in the middle. I really resonate with what you said.
Alexander, how do you relate to this for you in the context, of Bermuda? I think you started this like a year ago, right?
Yeah, like around a year ago. Yeah.
And so, how do you approach privacy, and what's the way you look at it right now?
Yeah, in the way of compliance, I think also like you have to add compliance mechanisms, and the other way it doesn't work. Like you will just build a clone of Tornado Cash. But it also, like for us, how we do it is we are like checking pre-deposits, but I think there needs also be a way if funds move into the pool to kind of de-shield them in a bad way, but without doing something like a God mode viewing key, which Sip also mentioned in the talk before. It should be something like a network that splits the key into different parts, and then on, let's say, Black Swan event, we are able to de-shield the funds. So yeah, I'm also about like the user experience. We shouldn't add too much compliance mechanisms that are like crazy, but yeah.
It's not much about we can provide the data, but if you provide too much God mode, then like the private banana purchase case, I guess I'm gonna quote you. Actually, Bermuda, because Bermuda, when I see that, I think about Bermuda. So one of the like actually very private bank and for like Panama paper type of thing and everything. So is this anything related to that? Why Bermuda?
That's just because it's a triangle, and the idea was that we can move funds into the triangle and they can move out, and you don't know where. But that's how we came up with the name. Yeah.
Okay. The Bermuda Triangle. Okay. I guess maybe if we jump a little bit on the compliance side, because that's what we want to talk about, and I guess like three of you have been in touch with this. Maybe you could tell us what has been the first compliance rules that you implemented and how you've been approaching this. Because for the conversation I had some time with institution and banks, it's more if you talk to a compliance officer, they don't understand anything of what we're talking about right now. And so I'm curious, what are like the way you've been approaching this in your respective endeavor, and if you could share like some maybe insights that you had from that experience. And who wants to start first? I don't want to force the.
Yeah, I think the first thing everyone adds is like just pre-deposit checks. Like you just check the addresses from the users that are depositing into the pool against some kind of list, some kind of POI or private PPI, like PPI, which Reagan does. And I think this is the first step everyone does when building a privacy protocol. Just checking against the list, and just check that you don't allow any OFAC addresses to enter your pool.
On my side, I can say that this is why I'm a big advocate of stealth addresses because they don't break traceability, making less problems with compliance as a starting point. So we're saying that we have all these addresses where money is received and money stays there. And a feedback that I got from a lot of users is that this simplifies a lot the compliance they have to take, especially for their businesses, because they are not mixing fund with anyone. Fund stays only with them, and they don't have to, to prove that they are not connecting to stolen funds and whatever. No, and this is why I always say that why we started with stealth addresses is because gives less problem with compliance. Still not a perfect solution with privacy. So then privacy pools comes in, so it's not stopping there. But that's why we started also with the stealth addresses.
Yeah, and taking back from what you said about maybe sometimes compliance officer from traditional institutions maybe don't understanding this, maybe I would say that's the main point. Maybe there is no one silver bullet you can use, but instead you gotta leverage like a suite of new methods. Of course, I think we cannot still use the methods in the old world. I see a large transaction, so I can go and demand from the user paperwork and more data. I think that's the thing we gotta leave behind, and instead we need to focus on more data analytics, blockchain analytics, behavioral science that actually identify risk and allow us to separate bad actors that are like maybe less than 1%, much far less than 1%, and leave the other 99 alone and happy and frictionless. I think that's the right balance, leveraging cryptography, data analytics, blockchain analytics, new tools to accomplish a smart compliance solution.
Yeah, maybe like adding on top of like all of these, like I think I guess importance is to having the tools available. So like the traceability and then accountability. So you have like those tools. I think technology is like you can be hidden behind that. You can use like ZK to like do selective disclosure, those kind of things. But like mostly it's important is providing the tooling so that those like compliance officer they can use, and similar to the way like they're using there, like so then they can do their jobs.
Since Scroll, do you build yourself like some compliant and like tools for like actually people building on your because being on a really infrastructure level, I'm curious like how you approach this. Is this like actually you provide some tools that people can use, and if anyone want to build an app, on Scroll, they have access to those compliance like services that you have?
So far, because we are being EVM compatible, so we can utilize actually a lot of the tools already be built for the Ethereum whole ecosystem and community. So those I think like those tools like Railgun or like Intmax they're doing like what they're using can be also deployed on the Scroll, and then you can then plug in and then using that to like do the initial filtering. But on the back, when we're building this, we definitely need to build additional tools more on the tooling level. So it's more like a data analytics. So like how you trace the funds, the flows, those kind of tools need to be built like on top of that.
I guess that makes me think also of the fact, while compliance rules can be a little bit different from one country to another, and since we're an industry that is very distributed, how do you approach that in the way you design your systems to be compliant while being private, when sometimes the requirement can be different depending on where you're going to operate, but also you don't have always the control of where people are going to use your tools. Maybe a little bit less for you, Lemon, as you probably have some license in every country that you are, but I'm wondering, also for you three, like how you approach that.
Yeah, I think for us, the right balance was to find a solution that fits for wallets the best, I would say. And then if we have customers that want like some kind of special solutions, we kind of can add custom compliance tech to specialized pools, I would say. But I think the right way is just to find the best balance, like PPOI, and then this kind of like threshold network to the crypto transactions, and give them a good base. Because like mostly wallets, they don't give you the requirements. They want you to show them how the compliance works and how you build it, and then get back to you. So yeah, in our case, I think the best case is just to build like this kind of base compliance layer with PPOI or POI, and then this threshold encryption layer.
So for us, it's like we are providing an SDK, so we're providing the infra. So we're going to work with the projects who are going to utilize our solutions to do that. So basically what we need to do is like we provide the tools that those projects need to be like stay compliant, and then we make sure like those options are available for them to use. Then they can like choose whatever they want to use to make their project to be compliant with any regions or countries they are operating in.
Two things. One is one of the reasons why we incorporate in Switzerland is that because they have like strong laws around privacy and compliance and what we are obliged to give. So because sometimes comes the point like, oh, if it's like a government say that the political opponents they want to be targeted are women, do we have to share some data? No, this is why first of all we line to that. And then I always say we are always a layer on top of what a good privacy stack low level is. So for example, they often say, "Oh, are you a competitor of Railgun?" No, we want to integrate them as a part because they also have like a lot work on compliance. Will be like double working, and if they don't exist, we have to do what they are doing. No, so this is why I focus more on UX and how we look at compliance. So making sure that what we integrate also and we offer with a good UX to end user. As also a strong compliant part for when it comes then to anti-money laundering and all this part.
How do you approach like this in 8 countries that you have with Lemon? How do you, maybe you could tell us more into details like what the compliance look like? Do you have some different regulation for each country you operate when you need to provide like some different reports? Like how does that look like and how you navigate this?
Well, it's quite complex. There's no silver bullet again. I would say it really differs from each jurisdiction. For instance, Argentina has a regulation by which the requirements that they put on us is really similar to what they put on banks. So maybe our room to maneuver is more limited. Still, we are really creative and try to leverage new tools. And as I said, try always to avoid this old approach, this brick and mortar compliance, old institutional approach. But yeah, in Argentina, it's quite more complex. You have other countries, since we have our license in El Salvador. So in many countries, we operate offshore. So in many countries, what happens to us is that we are actually not considered reporting entities, in terms of AML and other compliance requirements. So it really differs from which country we're talking about. In Argentina, we have to have a more detailed conversation with regulators and explaining them why our risk models are even better than what they actually drafted by law. In other countries, we have more flexibility since, as I said, we operate offshore, so we can maneuver with a little more flexibility.
We're in a DeFi conference on a compliance panel, and I have to pinch myself a little bit because I would not imagine seeing that a couple of years ago, but I think it's a pretty positive. Recently, I was on a panel, I was with someone from DTCC, and he was on a panel and he was saying, well, compliance, it doesn't block innovation. Actually, it can be like an engine and push for innovation. It's not the enemy, and I find that pretty fascinating. But that also raises a question, for the purist, of DeFi, compliance can look like the enemy, and so maybe you could tell me what you think is a misconception about compliance that our industry have, and that we should educate more our peers again. Alex?
Maybe we can start, yeah. I think as long as you don't break the self-custody inside of crypto and add compliance tag that doesn't allow someone to, as I said before, God view or view every transaction with your master viewing key, or you block the self-custody, I think it's fine to add compliance mechanisms as long as it doesn't break the user experience. So yeah, I think for me, the most important things is self-custody. So you're always able to move your funds or spend your funds wherever you want to. And so I don't think it's a problem.
Shen?
I think the one misconception is that the compliance means full transparency, where actually usually more accountability. So where you can account for certain behavior and then you can explain that to the regulators, and that would be good enough, I think.
When it comes to compliance, I think that the first misconception is that being compliant doesn't mean reveal everything. There's a great technology that emerged a lot, is zero knowledge proofs around that. Of course, we have always to remember on the other side that laws and judgment are made by people, non-tech people, and you have to explain the stuff to those people. So you always have to avoid to exaggerate into that direction. And also you find a middle ground because, again, no one has a PhD in ZK or math, and it needs to be simple to understand.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think we actually need less compliance, but instead better technology. I think we are on the way of achieving that. And I really resonate with what you said about, compliance can be really an advantage in terms of it generates trusts because, again, we really want to bring crypto to everyone, to my grandma, for instance. And in this stage, I think maybe we still need, more time to get to this full decentralization point in which I hope someday the lemons of the world, won't be necessary. But until we reach there and until we can get that many people in on the ship, compliance is a competitive advantage. And I fully align with what you say. We need better technology and demystify that complying more means flooding yourself with paper or useless data that doesn't solve any compliance issue at all.
Self-custody, accountability, making sure that we are that we also this is actually where you incorporate and you can distance yourself from bad actors. I guess how can we keep educating the regulators? Because I'm guessing if you encounter sometime talking to some compliance officer or some regulators about things that you're doing and what is maybe an experience that you had in that situation that you think could be helpful for people that want to do more of that work? Because the knowledge you acquire doing that work is something that we need to spread off. So what could you tell us about how to approach those compliance officer, regulators, or people that you need to explain zero knowledge proof? Is there any stories or experience you can share?
Not really stories, but what I think is just make the technical part easier to understand with documentations and explaining how the custody really works. Because when we talk to lawyers, they always ask but who's if you deposit funds into the Chile pool, who's really in custody? Is it you or is it someone else? And it's the very easy question for us because we know we don't have any custody, but for them it's actually already for some of them they don't really understand that it's a decentralized protocol. So it's just important to create more documentations and just try to explain more to them. Yeah.
Well, for us it's really challenging. I won't lie, but we've been having some constructive conversations because first reaction I think from everybody against something they maybe don't know, it's fear. But once you sit with them, as you said, maybe the person who's sitting on the other side of the table is not that tech savvy or doesn't have a background or blockchain or other technologies. When you actually show the potential and see how I cracked this case with blockchain analytics, for instance, and they start to understand the potential, they stop being that fearful and then skeptic. So maybe that's the good story I have. I tend to see in general with some regulators we've engaged throughout the region that they tend to be really, at least they listen. A bad experience I could share is that a recent case I had, some regulator I won't name, we've been reviewing with them a really high profile case with them in which we were collaborating, and they approached us and told us, well, maybe after this case you could consider requesting to all your users a proof of source of funds, and maybe you could request for them that they provide a proof of domicile. And we had to look them in the eye and say, okay, first of all, that goes far beyond the law. Second of all, that goes far beyond what the Financial Action Task Force expects from us, which is applying a risk-based approach and not treating our customers like criminals, because they are not. Less than 1% is. And third of all, that goes far against financial inclusion, because here in Argentina, for instance, and in many Latin American countries, we have half or more of the population working informally. So many people won't have a source of income, many people won't have a proof of address, and we will be not debanking, but excluding them from the financial system, So, and plus, in the age of AI, anybody can forge a document. So it's a really day-to-day work with them to make them understand that the old ways in which we comply with the law are not the best way to prevent actual risk.
I think that for the compliance part, when you a mistake you don't have to do is having 100% of tech or 100% of non-tech people working on that. Should be 50-50 because again, tech people can see a problem or can explain what what a regulation can bring, but this explanation will be never understood by who then writes the law, the compliance part. No, so this is where I think it's super important to always involve non-tech people in the final presentation of the document also, or in the standard that are built inside. It's never like a one way, it's like a back and forth until there's like a valid proposal. I think that's the only mistake I would avoid to do.
Want to add anything, guys? I think that I'm 100% with you. Like the translating the language, talking their language. I recently, I was, a friend told me actually, Redwan, you should take a certification, compliance course. It's not like a lot of work, maybe like half a day or something like that, but because that could help you to speak their language, to understand what they want and how you can approach that. And I haven't done it yet, but it's still on my mind. Maybe like, it's going to inspire more people, but I agree with you. Like we need to have like that language and be able to meet where they are and not from an engineering perspective. And, hearing you saying this on stage, I think it's very encouraging for the ecosystem. I was actually, you speak about like the data that they ask you, and you say, thank you for being here for the people and for the financial inclusion, Manny. But it's crazy the amount of data that they used to have. And the AI is also like creating some huge like new problem, in terms of like, like PI, like it's pretty crazy. I was seeing like a company, they do a demo where they can live, show like a Elon Musk something or Elon Musk and fake ID, like the video moving and how they detect everything. And they were showing me their protocol and they were like super proud. And the amount of information they were collecting was insane. And I was like, guys, how don't you think it's a little bit of a liability? Like how are you protecting all of this, like the device where it is being queried, like everything possible on Earth. And they didn't have any concern about this. And so I'm wondering, like, how can we, they really didn't give a, and I said, no, it's okay. We have like, the classic answer, like HSM, like data center, blah, 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 keywords. And I'm curious, how do you think we can educate better the decision makers that you can have privacy while allowing the level of transparency, and how, because in that case, like they didn't care. So how we can make people care more, and maybe what's your way of doing it? For Scroll, for instance, this is your DNA, right? During privacy.
Yeah. So I think like to us, it's like we think if the privacy become a default, then like everyone can benefit from this. So it's like not like convincing people to use like something private. Like if you can turn on this, like for a lot of projects and then applications, you can turn on the privacy by default, and then also it give users a good user experience. Then user will be happy about this. Like they would get like more adoption to use that.
Think about your users. I love that. That someone said that recently on a panel at the payment conference in Sibos. And so he makes a stable coin and he pull out the check and he say, this is a stable coin. And you know how to process a check. And a travel check, you can process that everywhere in the world. It's the same as a stable coin. And then he was telling, and it was a room full of bankers, very different fashion than here. And he said, like, you need to go where your users are, and they're going to be here. They're going to be in the tools that you're building and the product that you're building. So I think that's definitely the case. Maybe as we are here, like almost like we have 3 minutes left, I want to also, if you had, for instance, right now, some institution that want to build on blockchain in general, and that afraid of like this being the Wild West, and they have no control, what would you tell them, in a very short way?
That it will continue to be a Wild West until we collaborate to create compliance laws that are for both the sides.
Love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally agree. I think we need more collaboration in order to have better regulation. It's going to be the Far West if we don't talk to each other. And going back to your prior question, I think we really need to go to them. I mean, I don't think they're coming to us. So it's like, well, going to universities. I myself, I'm also a teacher. I try to go and spread the word. I think these forums are really necessary and are great, but we really need to do a little bit more in terms of going to public forums, more conference maybe than when we are not the protagonists, and stand, the ground for a bit until we, well, in the end, will prevail. But we need to do that work and step by step.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to collaborate because, like, I don't know, when you talk to non-Web3 people, they shape their like framework, we are shaping our framework, and then it's just clashing around. And I think it's just, like will be like a process, but I think we figure it out, and like we just have to collaborate more between Web2 and Web3.
Yeah, I agree. Like I think there definitely more education is needed and then more conversations between the two worlds. I feel like the stablecoin is a good initial steps. Like now, like it's not more people like institutions paying attention to that. And then next is that we need to convince them. Okay, now using the blockchain, and then you can still have the privacy, and you can still use like and make it more efficient for your own business. And then I think like they'll play step by step. Like definitely, like it won't be like the next day that all institutions will come online onto the blockchain. But it definitely, like we're making the progress on that, and definitely we need to have more conversations.
Awesome. Well, I love what I'm hearing. Super positive. Like meeting them there we are, coming to the institution to talk with them. I think it's definitely that we need to do. I've been actually doing this for like the last year at the Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, going to forums like NASHA, a payment conference in New Orleans, or Cybos, the Swift conference, or Singapore FinTech Festival last week. And, going really on the ground, I would encourage everyone like that want to do this to go and talk and try to understand what they want, what's the blocking. You would be surprised as they actually, once they do some digital asset institution, they know us much better than we think. And they're very well aware. Then there's still some people that raise eyebrows and think I'm selling Dogecoin, but that's part of the job. Thank you very much, everyone. It was a pleasure talking with you, and I think we're right on time.